Regina Queen, founder of Uplifting Women in All Walks of Life, United Women Empowerment Against Gun and Domestic Violence. My mission today is to bring awareness to prevent gun and domestic violence. I myself have encountered domestic and gun violence. I lost my son 2020, September 24th, 2020. As you all know, we have been hit globally with the pandemic. And since the pandemic, here in the United States, gun and domestic violence has risen. I have brought here with me on my panel women who have encountered domestic violence, and some of us have lost children to gun violence. We are here to bring awareness, to be a voice for humanity, to prevent the violence. I would like to introduce Rosemarie. Rosemarie is a domestic violence survivor, and she would like to lead us all here in Sisterhood Nation group in prayer before we proceed, being the voice, bringing awareness to prevent violence. Rosemarie, can you unmute your phone, your speaker?
Have to do that. I am so sorry.
You're welcome.
Dear Lord, my God, be with all who are in doubt about their relationships with others, especially significant others. Give them clarity so that they can make good decisions guided by your love. Help those who live in fear as a result of abusive relationships, including physical, mental, verbal, and emotional forms. Lord, enlighten those victims with wisdom to see when things are not right with their relationships. Give them the courage to do what is right for themselves. Let us also pray for the countless victims of violence, including gun violence. Lord, teach us all to value all life. Let us abandon all of our violent ways and become advocates for peace. We pray to you in the name of Jesus Christ, our hope and our Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. And to let everyone know that we here at Sisterhood Nation Group respect and embrace and love everyone of every religion and every ethnicity. So we respect everyone's religion. As you all know, gun and domestic violence leaves a horrible impact throughout communities and families. It has left a horrible impact throughout my family and friends. And I would have here with me too Xenia Barnes. Xenia Barnes is a motivational speaker and a life coach. She would like to speak for us today to give us all that motivation, and who all are watching us right now, all our viewers. We all need to be motivated, inspired, and encouraged to be the service for humanity.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if it's morning there where you are. Regina, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for allowing to sharing your platform. Sisters, I stand with you. And with no judgment, whether I've been in your situation or not, we all have encountered some sense of trauma. And today I really wanted to just speak to you from that angle of support. As many of you, I wear many hats, but today I'm wearing the hat of not only the motivational speaker, but also a survivor of gun violence, as I lost my nephew, Melquan Jantel Anderson, to gun violence. I would like to say, we hurt in different ways, and then we often blame ourselves for the experiences that happen. I want us to stop doing that. I want to speak light into you. I want to say that silence is loud. There will be many sisters who experience a similar situation, but they are afraid to speak, and your voice and what you do give them a sense of empowerment to speak up or even make some changes in their life. So I will say to my sisters that are surviving from domestic violence, I want to say not only is silence is loud, I want you to say continue sharing your story, continue sharing your experience of how you overcame your situation, because your stories are impactful and they also help others. I want to say you have overcome a lot of fear, and you have had to make many decisions in the moment. I want you to give yourself grace. I want you to be able to look in the mirror and look at the person and say, I love you. And until you can do that and accept that person looking back at you saying I love you too, I want you to understand that's how you make changes. So continue to look in the mirror, continue to say your affirmations, continue to say I love you, and let that person who's looking back in your mirror is saying, I'm still standing. I'm just waiting for you to stand with me. To my survivors in this fight of gun violence, yes, the trauma the trauma and the hurt that you're experiencing may be long lasting, but not your fear, your faith, your message, and your purpose is everlasting. So continue to march in your purpose as we are all doing. Continue to lean on one another. This is a space where you are not alone. There are other people who are experiencing similar things. Although our story may not be exactly the same, we are all experiencing some type of trauma and some type of hurt. Know that you are not alone in this fight. And let's continue to work together and bring awareness to this. And let's continue to be great. Because one thing you can know, as long as you are strong in your faith, God has the last say, and he will continue to guide you down your road. Your passion may not be what your purpose is. God will let you know when you're going in the right direction. Again, thank you, ladies, for having me, and I hope those words gave you some sense of comfort as you continue to do your work.
Thank you so much for that powerful speech that was very much needed, Xenia Barnes. And I would like to introduce Sherry Campbell. Sherry Campbell is a domestic violence survivor as well. And Sherry Campbell will share some of her story in her bio with us all, and to let everyone know how gun and domestic violence, well, especially domestic violence, has impacted her family and community. Oh, unmute your mic, Sherry.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sherry Campbell Nolan. Sherry Campbell is my Facebook name. That's my maiden name, but it's Sherry Campbell Nolan. I'm the director of Saving Ourselves, which is an organization that's meant to bring communities of color together to create awareness and just to be able to be a beacon in this society. Domestic violence. Domestic violence is one of the reasons why I ended up here in Chicago, Illinois, over 19 years ago. One of the things about domestic violence is everybody looks, a lot of times they look for the physical, they're looking for black eyes, they're looking for broken arms, they're looking for, just any physical evidence of domestic violence. My domestic violence started where it was very silent. It started with just a lot of verbal attacks. And as we know, and as I've learned, verbal attacks can be just as horrible or horrific than the violence itself from a hit. The one thing about a lick or an injury, a lot of times those things heal and go away, and you don't never see them. But with verbal, it's always there with you. Well, my domestic violence started out verbal, and then it ended up physical. And when the gasoline was brought into the picture, at that point I knew, this is not just for just not for show. I'm not, this person is not just angry right now. This can go a lot further. And with that, one of the things that I learned is it's a process still. It's a process of how do you leave, especially if you have a child, a small child. And at that time, we had a young child. And so leaving with him immediately was not an option, because my thing was, it wasn't just leaving and going to a neighbor, because I'm still there in that area, I'm still accessible. It was leaving and putting states between us. And that's how I ended up in Chicago, Illinois. But being here in Chicago, Illinois, being a big city, I come from California, but my young son, he came from more of an environment that was more supporting, and that was in Jackson, Mississippi. And after being here a couple of months, a school semester, he just, I just saw the downward spiral of not being around the friends and family that he knew. So that started where I took him back to Mississippi, where he continued to finish school. I continued to co-parent, going back and forth between Mississippi and here in Chicago, Illinois. But mind you, allowed my son to leave Chicago because it was very dangerous, and it was not a place for my son. My son was not a leader. He was great. I loved him. We raised him up with morals and values, but he was not able to sustain living the city life. So sending him back to Jackson, Mississippi, that's where he would finish high school. That's where he would go to college. That's where he would start his career at General Motors. That's where he would become a father. Well, July the 7th, 2021, my son was killed due to gun violence. He was shot multiple times. And that put me in a situation where now I'm on this side, being a mother, speaking out about gun violence so that nobody else has to endure what it is that we're enduring. And then, mind you, I've been on this front line dealing with gun violence, working with young women, building self-esteem, working with older women, implementing the curriculum Sister, which was a CDC evidence-based box curriculum. And, I did all of this, and I felt at one point, I did all of this to make sure, number one, that none of my children would be a part of domestic violence. None of my children would be a part of gun violence, because that's why we had the education. That's why we talked. This is why I poured into the community, because it's not just about me and my family. It's about everybody, because it takes everybody. When our kids go outside, they're playing with other people from other families. So I understood this, but still, I'm here. After July the 7th, 2021, my son was number 76 to be killed for that year. And what I say is, I've united with all of the sisters that's here on the screen, and it's a beautiful thing. I just wish we had found each other on other circumstances.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your service, Sherry Campbell Nolan. I really appreciate that. And you being a service to humanity and being a voice for your son and other victims we lost to gun violence, gun and domestic violence. Thank you. And I would like to introduce Laura Hurley. Laura Hurley is a victim of gun violence as well. She lost her son to gun violence. And first of all, let me introduce, before I go into you, Laura Hurley, I want to touch base with the DV survivors. And I want to introduce Rose Marie again. Rose Marie is a domestic violence survivor as well. Rose Marie, can you share your story and some of your bio with us? Thank you.
Yes. So I was with my abuser for 13 years. And he definitely had a way of making me believe that I really didn't deserve much better. They belittle you and degrade you and humiliate. They know what buttons to push, and then they also know how to bring you flowers afterwards and take you out to dinner and buy you pretty things. And they make a lot of empty promises. But there's not much my abuser did not do to me. He pretty much ran the gamut of every possible way you could be abused, verbally, physically, mentally, spiritually. He tried to distance me from my family. There was a lot of jealousy. There were a lot of rules to follow. And some, it's very hard. I can honestly say that one of the hardest things I struggle with is forgiving myself, because I'm very angry at myself that I allowed this. That I used to always look at that and say, yeah, wait to see if a man ever put his hands on me, but how it happens is it begins little and it grows and it escalates. And as it's escalating, your self-esteem is diminishing little by little by little by little. And they feed off of that. I think it almost like it gives them like a high, because honestly, I feel that domestic violence, people that are able to hurt other people, I think that they're cowards. And I think they look for scapegoats, and I was his scapegoat. They look for a punching bag, and I was the punching bag. And, and the more that they do that to you, the less you believe in yourself. And oddly enough, I was the one that carried the shame and the guilt. I mean, my very dearest, closest friends who I worked with every day did not know, because I didn't want them to know. And somehow I wore that mask of, oh, I'm happy. And, and I would look at other people and say, I wish you only knew what I was going home to, because not only did he verbally abuse me, but he verbally abused everyone. And except for men, he was afraid of men. And, and even verbally abused my mother, who came to live with me. And she was 80, at the time, 86, 87. And he verbally abused her. So it was a struggle. So no, I did not have a small child, but I had an old mother. And I was trying to look out for her well-being, and I had to go to work, and I was always a nervous wreck because he came home before me. And and I always had these strict rules about my mother, and she wasn't to be in the same room with him. And it was walking on eggshells, actually like walking on broken glass. And I hope that I can help one woman to not have the ending the way it came for me. I know that the resources were out there. I knew that. I knew that there were domestic hotlines and shelters and things like that. I was terrified, and I knew that he would come after me. I knew that. I also was terrified financially, and it was always thrown in my face that he paid the mortgage and the bulk of the bills, which was true. I mean, I contributed, but once again, it's they play on your weaknesses, and he knew exactly what to do. I wish that I would have reached out. I hope somebody watching will take this advice. Safety first. I say that first and foremost, safety first.
Yes.
But there's going to come a time when you'll be alone. You can pick up the phone, or he'll go to work, or he'll fall asleep, or anything like that. But have a plan. Have a plan. Let somebody know. Tell somebody you trust. Go to somebody. If it's your doctor, your best friend, your coworker, your neighbor,
yes,
an adult child, somebody that you can trust, and plan your escape. Plan how you're going to do this. I never did that. And my end, which I should say is actually the beginning of my new life, which is very happy. But my end came at a very costly price, because my end came with me defending myself for the last and final time. But in the struggle, I ended up stabbing him. And I told him at one time that if he ever touched me again, one of us would go to the morgue and one would go to jail. Well, I was the one that went to jail. He did not go to the morgue. I didn't kill him, but he did go to the hospital, and he ended up in rehab, because where I cut him, there was an artery. But it could have gone completely the other way. That man overpowered me for 13 years. How in God's name I overpowered him that day? It was divine intervention. There's no other way to explain it. It was God. There's no way. He was a lot bigger and a lot stronger than me. And I had been at his mercy many times. There were times that he was choking me that I used to say, this is it. This is how I'm going to get him. And believe it or not, there were times that I used to say, I don't even care, because I think death would probably be better. I just didn't want to die at his hands. But the saddest part about the ending is that the system really wasn't supportive of me. I defended myself. After 13 years of him beating on me, I defended myself, and I ended up in jail. I ended up in handcuffs. I ended up being treated like a piece of dirt in a jail for 6 days, as though I was a felon that walked around abusing people. And he was treated with dignity and respect in the hospital. And I was treated like an animal in a jail cell.
Yes.
It also cost me $10,000 because my lawyer told me that if I did go to trial, I ran a very good risk if I got a male jury that they would side with him. And my charge was assault with a deadly weapon. And that carries like 10 years.
Yes.
So I spent the $10,000, and my lawyer was very good with his convincing and all that with the judge. And I got my charges dropped to a disorderly person. But nonetheless, what message does that give women? That you could be beat for 13 years, but if you defend yourself, you're a criminal. And the laws have to change.
Yes, exactly. And I totally agree with that. Thank you so much, Rosemarie, for sharing some of your story. And I am so happy that you came out a survivor after 13
Yes.
years of abuse. And thank you so much for being a service to humanity and being a voice for
Thank
other
you.
victims and sending out that powerful message.
Thank you. I have a wonderful
You're
support
welcome.
system now. So thank you. And a
Thank
wonderful, wonderful friends, a wonderful fiance now, and wonderful family. My children, I'm very blessed. I'm very, very, very blessed. And I just hope somebody
you
is
so
listening.
much. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. So now we're going to go. Thank you so much. Thank you. And so now I would like to introduce Tanya Love. Tanya Love will share some of her bio and some of her story of how domestic violence has impact her family and community.
So I'm a little emotional or whatever because
Oh,
listening to everybody's story. I don't know, I'm very emotional about it because I realized I didn't really like experience domestic violence. I lived it like all my life. This is all I've ever known, with my mom fighting me, my stepdad, and watching my mom and watching my dad abuse my mother. So it was a I would call it a generational curse. It was like domestic violence is all I knew. And for me, watching my mom like get cut up, and watching my dad, the stuff that my dad had did to her, I had made a vow that I didn't want to be a victim. So I would fight back, and I would. A lot of people say I was abused or whatever, but I would protect myself because I felt like, me being molested and going through the things, I did not want to be a victim, and I didn't know who would protect me other than myself when my mother wasn't protecting me and stuff. So I had to learn to fight. That's all I've ever done is fight, for to survive. I'm fighting my mom, I'm fighting my stepdad, I'm fighting the people in relationships. I'm just fighting, fighting, fighting. And I realized that that
we
domestic
here.
violence, I mean,
We
it,
got
it
you.
makes you feel it makes you feel like you put up with stuff and you don't even know why. You're better than this, you deserve better than this, and you don't understand why this person, you're just looking for love, and you don't understand why this person won't love you the way that you love them. You try to do everything, you walk on eggshells all the time because you know what it is to and for me, I didn't think I was really a victim because I watch the TV programs and I see how guys just beat their women, and they're afraid. Me, like, if you hit me, we're fighting. I'm gonna fight you. We're gonna fight back. You know what I'm saying? So even though I'm broken jaws and black eyes and fractured shoulders, but still I'm fighting. I'm pulling out knives. I'm running people over. I am pulling out guns. I done put a gun to somebody's head and tried to pull the trigger. And thank God that I should be either in prison, I should be dead. But by the grace of God, I'm here in order to tell my story and to let women know that it's not okay. It's not okay for somebody to verbally abuse you. It's not okay for somebody to rape you, whether they're your husband. If you say no, it's no. It's not okay for somebody to try to control you, to beat you. It's not okay for us to cover up and wear glasses and try to wear makeup to cover up for these men. And with me being so young, like I said, domestic violence. This is all I knew. Fighting is all I knew. This is all I ever knew how to do. So for me, when I did try to go to a shelter, I remember that feeling. My baby was little. I had two small children from my ex-husband, my first husband, and I remember I was so sore because he had punched me everywhere and I couldn't hardly move. I had two black eyes. He had beat me in front of my kids. I couldn't hardly move. And I remember my baby was crying and I couldn't even bend over to pick him up. And the lady was like, if you don't pick that baby up, you're going to jail for neglect. And the way that she treated me at that shelter, I told her, you know what, I would rather go home and face him than to sit here and be treated like I did something wrong. I don't understand first of all, it wasn't until like OJ Simpson had, whether y'all believe it's guilt or not, but it wasn't until that case to where domestic violence started being treated a little bit more seriously, but it still gets pushed under the rug so much, right? It still gets to where we have to go and get restraining orders, and that the restraining orders are still, that these people don't adhere to the rules of the restraining order and things like that. And so for me, I don't know, I just feel like domestic violence it definitely has took its course in my life.
Mm. Thank you, Tanya.
Sister Tanya, I just want to say, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Virginia. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, because there's so many young girls, there's so many women that's out there in a similar situation. And it's just like, I'm not a victim because I fight back. And it's not so much about being a victim, it's about the exposure, it's about the experience that you're having. And we need, our young girls and our ladies that are suffering, we need them to know that this is not okay. And yes, you have the right to fight back, but you also have the right to peace of mind, and you have to have you have a right to a safe space, safe mental space, and safe physical space. So thank you so much for sharing that, because there's a lot of people who are experiencing a similar thing. And as you were telling your story, I was just thinking back to some things for myself in my own life, and I'm like, wow, I never even looked at it that way, as if that being domestic abuse or anything of that nature. So that was like an aha moment for me.
Mm.
I just want to thank you for sharing your experience, because there's a lot of people out there right now who are having aha moments. So once again, thank you.
Yes, and thank you for that too, Xenia and Tanya. For some people, we do have some people who haven't encountered, who has been in a domestic violence, relationship physically, but have seen it in their families in the home and just grew up watching it, and that leaves the same impact as having an encounter with domestic violence as well. So thank you so much for that, Tanya, and my heart goes out to you, sister. Really does. And I have Karen. Are you a domestic violence survivor?
Hi, girls. I'm actually here joining in just because recovery and powerful stories like these are needed. They're
Yes.
needed every day of the week. They're needed every town, every city. The
Yes.
voices that you girls have need to be in abundance.
Thank
Un-
you.
Unfortunately, the pink elephant in the room is wide world. And no, I am not, but I have also come up through recovery my whole life. I have come from abuse. I come from sexual abuse. I come from divorce, drug addiction, alcoholism. So I know what that's like. Rose and I have been friends. We met through the grace of God, and I know that I'm here for support for her. But what you do, it needs to continue more and more and more. I pray that you can continue. And there's 40 girls on this panel next time, 50 girls, 60 girls, because
Yes.
it's needed. And
Yes.
God can turn a mess into a message. and I trust him. So you just stay close to him, and you girls are all in my prayers.
Yes. Thank you so much, Karen, for that. We really appreciate you being here to support us through this all. And, the more support, the more stronger we are, to stand together in unity. And I would like to introduce Mimi Bell. Mimi Bell has lost a child. Mimi Bell didn't lose a child to gun violence, but she did lose her child as a newborn baby. And that is still a tragedy for her. And Mimi Bell would like to share some of her story and her bio as well. Can you hear us, Mimi? Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you heard. Thought I heard you say somebody
It's
else.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah, but with me, I had got pregnant by my ex, and it just that when I think it was like maybe I was 7.5 months pregnant, but they said they were gonna take my baby 2 weeks early because by me being a diabetic, I might hurt her, she might hurt me. But when I went in late December to for the regular checkup, they couldn't even find her heartbeat. They just told me that she was stillborn, and it's like I was just sitting there because I had called my mom and I said, "Mom, they say my leg's stillborn," and she was like, "Huh?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "But Mom, you know me, I don't believe till she actually get here." And it's just like I was in not naive and everything until I actually had her. I was still thinking my baby was still alive. She was just being stubborn, and that was just a hurting feeling for me because that was my first child and everything. And I just went through so much stuff during the whole pregnancy with her.
Thank you for that, Mimi. And our heart and our compassion, love, and prayers go out to you. And you continue to advocate with us. Thank you for your support, for being here to advocate with women who have lost a child, to gun violence, advocating for gun violence and domestic violence as well. As you are not, a domestic violence survivor, victim, or you haven't encountered none of that, but you are still here to support us. And thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Yes. And also, I would like to introduce, let me see, our panel just grew. We have somebody else that came in. We have Danielle. She just came in. Thank you for joining us, Danielle. And I would like to go into uh, asking you ladies, like, how does domestic violence, can you define domestic violence with gun violence? And I would like to introduce Laura Hurley, to take us into that part of the how we can define domestic violence with gun violence, as Laura Hurley lost her son to gun violence as well.
How you doing, everybody? Hello, my sisters. Love all of you. Thank you for having me. This is my son. This is Brendan. He's so beautiful. I lost him July 16th, 2019, to gun violence. Him and his friend Anthony were both killed during a robbery. It's been very difficult, but I'm here advocating not for my son and Anthony, but for everybody, because there's just so much going on in this world with gun violence, and the lack of justice in this system is just mind-blowing. I grieve my son all day, every day. We were talking earlier, somebody said, you need to look in the mirror and, forgive yourself. And, I went through all that, the guilt and everything else. And maybe I wasn't a good mother. I don't feel that way anymore. I know I was a good mother. I know I'm still a good mother. My kids are my life. I chose to be a mother. So my life changed them. But I also do know that I am not the same person anymore. I'm not the same as I was when my family was whole. And I've accepted that. And that's what's putting me in this position today to seek justice, not just for my son and Anthony, but for any other mother that needs help, wants me to share, wants to talk about it, needs an ear, wants to scream, whatever the case may be. Um, so that's why I'm here, because it's horrific. And it doesn't have to be a mother, it could be a sister, it could be a grandparent, it could be, a friend that lost somebody to gun violence. Gun violence is absolutely ridiculous. um, at the end of the day, um, if it was a defense thing, like, I'm not gonna sit there and I don't judge people. Listen, I am first foremost, I do carry a gun. I don't sit there and try to kill people with it, but for my safety and my family, I am a gun carrier. uh, I'm not sitting there saying that guns are the worst thing. It's just they're getting into the wrong hands, especially our young folks. They're not educated. They're definitely not licensed gun carriers, and um, they're just they're shooting to kill for nothing. They're shooting to kill for nothing. One of the things that I wanted to touch on, um, the last show that I did with Regina, we were talking about pandemic statistics and stuff like that. I thought I'd take a different route this time, because there's a lot of mothers out there that are advocating for justice for their children, because they have not have any arrests or anything. In the United States alone, there's 269,205 cold cases as of just 2020. That's not even counting anything past 2020. That is absurd. And one of the things that I'm going to try to go to, I live in North Carolina, and I'm going to try to go to my legislator. I have a meeting set up and talk to the governor and stuff like that, is these Crime Stopper awards. Nobody is going to come to you for information for $5,000. That's lunch money. Especially when it comes down to violence, who they know has killed this person or persons. They're not willing to risk their own selves for $5,000. That is not enough reward. There's enough money in these states and in this United States that we can send money everywhere and do all these things except cover things like that. $5,000 does not cut it. So what's happening is putting families in predicaments to where they have to try to raise more money, try to put it out there to try to help, bring somebody in that's going to tell something, because the loss is already hard enough, but the lack of accountability is horrible. I read stories and stuff like that. I would be crushed if there wasn't at least one person behind bars. I'm not in that situation. I helped out a lot. I got very involved in my son's case. I sent information. I looked, because young people are stupid. My son was 23 when he was killed. Young people love social media. They use social media to exploit themselves because they think it's cool and they can show this and show that. Well, you're dumb, because I saw you, and then I gave information, and then I still did that. I sat there from the minute my son showed up late. He did not show up from that moment until today, almost 3 years later. I keep going because I know there's more out there, and I know there's more to this. So I'm here for all of us. It's just, there's just so many of us, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and it's just very, very tragic to me. It's tragic to me to hear these stories, about domestic violence. That hurts my soul, because I'm a very loving person. um my daughter went through that. My daughter got pregnant at 15. Her baby's father put his hands on her when she was holding a baby. She was just 16 years old, and you know what? No, you will not. You're gonna get the H out of my house, and you're not going to come back. He does not see this baby. She is going to be 2 in August, unless it is supervised by me. I don't care. My daughter's still a minor. She is not going to be a statistic. She has learned now that she is worth more than that, because that's what happens, though. These people, they beat you down to think that you were worth nothing, that she was never going to find better. Oh, you're 15 and pregnant now. My granddaughter is one of the biggest blessings. She came at a time when we needed her the most. I was grieving my son. She was grieving her brother. So she is definitely a miracle baby to us, but she's going to learn in life to not take this crap, because I let her see things. I let her read your guys' stories. I want my children to see this. I don't shelter them, because this world is cruel. So when you share something, I'm like, look at what this woman went through. This is not the life you want. So you have to make better choices. You have to know the signs early. You do not let somebody do this. And this is thankful for you folks for being able to share your story, that I'm able to show my children that, because all I got is girls left. My son was my only boy, and they need to know that they're going to be safe and not put themselves in this situation. And if they are in this situation, it's encouraging to see what you did to get out of this situation. So it's milestones. It's tragic, but it's wonderful. And I thank you so much to all my sisters on both ends. And if anybody wants to share their story or anything, or wants to talk to me, or can, just needs somebody to just listen, I am here all the time. I'm always here for you. So please feel free to reach out to me. And thank you again, Regina, to for including me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Laura Hurley, for being here with us today. Thank you for sharing your story and being the voice for humanity and your son as well. We appreciate you so much. And next, I would like to introduce Danielle. Danielle has experienced gun violence in her family as well. And Danielle, if you can share uh, some of your story with us and introduce yourself. Thank you for being here with us.
Hello, I was invited by Miss Cherie Campbell. I and her son, we were co-workers and friends, real good friends. I didn't come to speak. I just came to listen in and for support because I have experienced it because me and her son we were very close.
Mm.
But I didn't come to speak. I just came to listen in and come for support.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us and, helping us, showing how brilliant us women are, how we stand, sisters stand in unity together. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for supporting her and
You're
supporting us
welcome.
all. We appreciate, we need more people like you to come together with us to, listen, be an ear, listen in, and help prevent and spread awareness against violence. As you know, it leaves a horrible impact on our families and communities. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.
And then Tanya, Tanya Love would like to share some of her story of gun violence and some of her bio, as she spoke already, but she, it's so sensitive. Our stories for us all is so sensitive, and she needed a little bit more time to, take a breath. And so right now she want to share some of her bio with us and what she does as an advocate.
Talking. Once again, my name is Tanya Love, and so I was saying I have been a survivor of, I'm not going to even say survivor, overcomer of domestic violence, sexual abuse, foster homes, suicide attempts, teenage pregnancies, homelessness, jail, mental institutions, and and then and unfortunately the death of my son Prosper, who God had instructed me to name Prosper as a sign that he was going to prosper me of all those adversities that I just named. So imagine when he was killed, I felt like, God's promise had died right along with him. And, went into a frenzy about why would God tell me to name my baby such a magnificent name, such an inspiring name, and then take him so violently. Um, but I know that my son, he's here, and it's my mission in life to prosper for him and to help women who have endured and encountered and will encounter some of the things that I have encountered, to let them know that you can make it on the other side with God's grace and with the love and support of people, and just changing your mindset from knowing that you don't have to be a victim, knowing your self-worth, and knowing that we're queens in God's sight, and we have to be queens in our own right, and just making sure that we treat each other, we got to treat ourselves as queens, then everyone else will start treating us as queens. So my organization is called No Weapon Shall Prosper, and it is just what it means. It lets you know that every weapon that was formed against you does not have to prosper to destroy you, and that you can actually use, like we are doing, your test to be a testimony, your mess to be a message to help other people. And I self-published a book. It's called I Got This Promise from My Father. No Weapon Shall Prosper. It tells my story of being in the foster homes and the abuses that I endured, and how, even with the death of my son, how God's grace had pulled me through everything. And I advocate through music and art. Those are the ways that I advocate, through my poetry and through my music. So, um, losing my son, he was 17 when he passed away. I was 17 when I had got prophesied to from a preacher that I would have a worldwide ministry, after trying to commit suicide and being locked up for depression, because I was 8 months pregnant with my oldest son, Ezekiel. And that was when I met um, God, really, for the first time. Even though my stepdad was a preacher, he was trying to molest me. So I didn't really want to have a relationship with God, because my parents were religious. We couldn't have TVs. We couldn't wear pants around the house. But then I'm still seeing the things that they're doing, and that's though it wasn't right. And I'm getting jumped on from my mom. She knocked my front tooth out. Um, it was just a lot of, fighting and stuff. So I didn't really want to have a relationship with God. I want to know who God was. But then I started saying, God, I wanted to know the God of the Bible, as I started reading the Bible, not the God that my mother and them, who I felt like they were serving or whatever. But I wanted to know this God of the Bible, the God that loves, the God that does these miracles. And God just started really slowly but surely developing a relationship with me, as I began to just call unto him, not, and like I said, I went to this church, and this man prophesied, told me that God loved me. That absolutely changed my life, because I didn't felt like anybody loved me with everything that I went through. But to know that this supreme being that is almighty loves little old me, that changed my life. And God is everything. He is my source for everything. The counseling and stuff helps, but I'm telling you, it's something about when you have that divine connection with God. I'm telling you, He can pull you out of any rut. He can deliver you out of any circumstance. He can clean you out of any muddy water. I mean, He's just magnificent. I love him. And I just encourage you, if you don't know God, I mean, get to know him. I mean, he's everything. He's awesome. Even with our ladies, I believe that God is the head of all of our lives, and he's the one that's given us the source and the strength to even come to you people this day. So if you need help, you have Virginia, you have all these other organizations. My organization is No Weapon Shall Prosper. It's nwspjax.org. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So we're here to help you. We're here to love on you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya Love. We appreciate your service, and we appreciate everything that you are doing and being a voice for your son and other victims we have lost. We have lost to gun violence as well. And I'm going to give it over to you, Sherry Campbell Nola, so that way you can bring in Sabrina Howard, as she is here to advocate and support you and us all. Sherry, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Sabrina, can you hear Sherry? Tanya, can you hear me?
I can't hear Sherry.
Okay, I can hear you, Sabrina. Sherry, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. So what? Yes, we can't hear you, Sherry. So what I'll do, I'll go ahead and introduce Sabrina. Sabrina Howard is an artist, photographer, right?
Visual artist. I
Okay.
paint.
Yes. Can you introduce yourself to everyone and give us some of your bio?
Okay. Thanks for the invitation, Sherry. I know she was probably introducing me, but we couldn't hear.
Yes.
I am a local artist. Um, I live and I am from Jackson, Mississippi. As you guys can see, just based on the support alone, we are just tragically affected by what's happening in our communities regarding gun violence. Now, like I said, I'm a local artist here in Jackson, Mississippi. Sherry and I met in an interesting way. I'm an artist over here. Had decided to start a project that works with parents of who have lost children to gun violence. Prior to our meeting, I had met with a couple of people who will support this project. And what the project is that there are these actual portraits that I do of the victims, but I have been contacting. Um, I have been contacting mothers privately because it's not a public project, and when you're painting these pieces, you can only paint like one brushstroke at a time. But I have another link as to why I wanted to even attempt this project. Um, I have two boys who are within the largest percentage of young men who are losing their lives to gun violence in our city. And a lot of the young men that I've seen on the news or here who have lost their lives to gun violence, I've either had them in my house, fed them, um, picked them up from football practice, gave them rides to school. I mean, these are or are people who were my son's friends. And there was one particular young man who lost his life to gun violence a couple of years ago, who was my son's best friend. And you know how best friends are; they're always over each other's houses. And this young man was always at my house, and he was like my son. And I remember the pain I felt when I found out that he had been gunned down, and I couldn't rest for about 2 nights. And I decided to paint my feelings, right? And the piece that I created was called "Senseless Loss." I don't have it here to share with you, but it's on my pages. This particular piece shows a woman that appears in she's in pain, she's showing anguish, and she has this hole that's missing in her womb. And I did a write up about it, about how that felt, because I can only imagine how another mother feels when after she loses a child to gun violence. I've also been a victim. I've been within dwellings and just feet away from drive-bys in Jackson, Mississippi. So, so that's a little bit of history as far as how I got into the project that I've started working on. Now I met Sherry through a family member that wanted to show, just wanted to do something else regarding Sherry's loss after her son was murdered. Um, but to her family member's surprise, this is a project I was already working on. So, what is this project? This project, like I said, is a portrait project that's for the families of victims of gun violence, and to also bring awareness and show the link between the like racial and social injustices that's tied with these particular situations, and also to remind people that the victims of these situations are human. They have family members, people love them, they had positions at jobs, they were people. And so often, so much is happening now during this pandemic, all of that stuff is desensitized. Like, it's like almost as though no one cares, and that's not the way it should be. If people start to care and be more concerned with what's going on in their cities regarding gun violence and domestic violence, then more resolution will most likely come to the situation. I mean, there's with my pieces that I create that focus on gun violence, and I do have pieces that focus on domestic violence as well. I work toward the resolution of the situations through my pieces by bringing awareness and showing people that there's a cost to all of this. Yes, there's a cost to someone becoming a victim of these things, and there's also a cost to the actual perpetrator exercising this action that eventually harms someone. So that, with the link to the injustices that have been happening over the years in our communities, that's just something I want to show through this project. And Sherry and I are working on another visual project together. You guys will hear more about that later, maybe. But this is the meeting was surely from God, because I knew that even though I'm not a victim, and and I can't begin to express or feel what the victims feel or the family members feel. So then I met Miss Campbell, and I was like, okay, so this is gonna happen. We're really gonna do this project. So again, to the survivors, I want to just say what I've had to start telling myself lately is that we are enough, and it's nothing that no one can tell you less than who you are and what you are, because God made us all special, and we're all here for a purpose. And thanks for sharing your story, Sherry. Thanks for inviting me on, and I really love this setup, and I hope to be a part of more that you do. Thank you.
Miss Regina, can I say something to her real quick? I just want to
Yes, sure.
I just want to tell you thank you so much, because that's one of the things that I've noticed, and even noticed now that I am a survivor to gun violence, is that there's so many people that are not affected that turn a blind eye. And I just want to thank you so much for being so supportive in your community and to us, even though you are not. That means so much to so many people that you see, because most people, they don't want to look. You talk about it and they just turn away, and you did not do that. And I just want to thank you so much for that. That just touched me so much, and I felt that I had to say something. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And same here, Sabrina Howard. Thank you for your service. I'm so happy and honored that Sherry Campbell Nolan brought you here with us today. And I would love to um, be a client of yours and get some pictures done, And it's time for me to start getting my pictures done. This is my son right here. It's Tigger, yes, and my daughter. And I have a picture of my son and my daughter. I lost my daughter, but to an illness. But I lost my son to gun violence. But I do want a nice, beautiful portrait of both of my children together, and I will be contacting you. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you. And then I would like to go over to Coach Barnes, motivational speaker, Xenia Barnes. So inspiring. She's going to share her story.
So hi, yes. Remember I told you I wear many hats, and so one of the hats, another hat I wear. I'm also a co-founder and chief communication officer for the Melquan Giselle Anderson Foundation, fighting against gun violence via education, which is a foundation my family has started after my nephew was murdered in 2017, 4 days after his 27th birthday, and just I remember the hurt that we felt. It was so earth shattering that I just knew we had to do something, because I didn't want another family to have to experience that hurt. When we got to the hospital, I remember seeing it was almost like watching the spirit leave out of my sister when we found out my nephew was gone. And it's like at that moment, I knew I lost two people. I lost my sister as well as I lost my son. I lost my sister in the sense of she would never be the same again. She wouldn't be that jolly person. She wouldn't, be that person that her smile lights up the room, just because everything that she had been fighting for her entire life had been stripped away from her. I mean, we did everything from making sure they were in the best schools, extracurricular activities, like anything to say like the streets won't get a hold to our children. And then for someone to murder my nephew in a sense of jealousy, like his friend, and they saw him, so they murdered him. It's just like, what do you do when you feel like you have done everything to protect your child and still swallow them whole? So yes, we created the Melquan Giselle Anderson Foundation, and what we do is we give out scholarships to young people leaving in their senior year of high school going into college, or even if they're in college and they have a GPA of 2.5 or below. Because although my nephew was a scholar and he had a 3.8 GPA, we also know how uh, life has a way of distorting everything and you not being able to focus. So domestic violence may play into you not being able to do what you need to do in school to keep your grades up, homelessness, not having food, violence, whatever it is. So we wanted to make sure we captured those people, because there's so many awards out there already, or scholarships for people who already have a 3.4 or higher GPA. But what about those in between people? So we wanted to make sure we reach out to them. We also do care packages. We do an emergency fund. We provide groceries to the elderly, that especially during the pandemic, who are afraid to go out to the stores. We brought the testing mobiles out to the community to make sure everybody in the community was able to get tested. Just so many different things we like to do. Our greatest thing is our gala that we do at the Brooklyn Museum, where we have local artists come and display their work. And these are youngsters, these are just people in the community who may not ever have the chance to display their work in the Brooklyn Museum because of what we do and speaking the life into my nephew's name and his legacy. We provide that opportunity for them. So again, I just know that, like I said before, this hurt may be long lasting, but our purpose and our message will be everlasting. We will continue to make change. We will continue to fight and speak and breathe life into the names of our loved ones. To that sister that was on, yes, you're not a survivor of gun violence, but you are. I mean, you're not a victim, but you are a survivor, because you have lost people, whether it's may not be directly but indirectly, like the children who were at your house. You had a love for them, so you also had to go through that process of healing. And again, I will continue to be here. Please let me know of all the things that you guys have going on, so that I can support, I can come, I can speak, or even just be there just to support you or any way that I can. Next month I'm having a trauma is real session, and I hope all you ladies will come. It'll be on a similar platform as this, and it's just more so about healing through our trauma. And what does that look like? What does it look like to forgive yourself through your trauma? So I just want to make sure that we are able to support one another any way we have. To the lovely sister Regina, thank you so much for this platform. Thank you so much for bringing us all together. And I'm going to pass it back to you to allow you to close out. Thank you.
Thank you, Xenia Barnes. Sherry Calvin Nolan. Sherry Campbell Nolan, she wanted to share some of Danielle's story for her, because right now it's too detrimental for her to share her story. And, as she's hearing our stories, it's very sensitive for her. And so I would like to um, get ready to close this out, ladies, sisters, queens. And some of our sisters had lost signal, went out, but it's okay. We're going to carry on, and we are still being the voice advocating for each other against gun and domestic violence. Tanya will take us into a nice, beautiful, beautiful a poem that she has written. And if we can just see if we can wait for one, we will try to wait for the other sisters to come back in. Give them a second, Tanya, so they can hear this poem, if that's okay with you. Tanya Love is going to
Yes.
get us on with the
Yes.
poem that she has written. Thank you,
I
Tanya
can
Love.
hear you.
Yes, I was letting the ladies know that you're going to read your poem for us as we close
Oh, okay.
out.
All right.
Mhm.
This poem is from my book. I got this promise from my father, and a weapon shall prosper. And it's God's letter to abused women. I'm there when he curses you, when he shouts and calls you names. I'm there when he punches and kicks you and says you are to blame. I'm there when he disrespects you in front of your children. I'm there when he tears you down, your spirit he's steady killing. I'm there when your children are crying in torment and fear. I'm there when he apologizes and you think that he's sincere. I'm there when he makes love to you as the cycle repeats itself. I'm there wondering why you no longer value yourself. I'm here hoping you realize this isn't the definition of love. I'm here ready to dispatch hell from earth and up above. I'm here waiting for you to participate in the saving of your own life. I'm here to remind you that you were my child before you became his wife. I'm here to love you unconditional like a woman so deserves. I'm here to reveal to you what's in a woman's worth. But I can't go against your free will and force my will upon you. The first step to your own salvation has to come from you. But there are agencies that will help you see this through. Ask Tanya for her testimony. She is my living proof. How I can transform your life like I desire to do. But first, you must learn to love yourself as much as I love you. Sincerely, God.
Wow.
That was
Beautiful.
Thank you for that. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Sherry Campbell, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you. And before I close out, I would like to give you the opportunity to share some of Danielle's story for her.
So, as Danielle told you, she was the best friend to my son, Akeem, who was killed. But Danielle's story also resonated because after months after my son was killed, one of her cousins' son was killed. The unique thing about this murder was her cousin mother was a police officer in that area. That mother was called to a shooting. When the mother showed up, it was her son dead in the street. Yeah. So that was kind of hard for her. Of course,
Yes.
I put her on the spot. She's young, she's young. My son was 28,
Yes.
around that age too. So always when we can get them to come, we try to get them to come. But I kind of put her on the spot.
Yes. Thank you for sharing her story and being a voice and advocating for her. And that is what Sisterhood Nation is all about. Standing in unity together, being a voice for each other and supporting each other. And we would like to thank everyone for supporting us and being a part of our awareness. And you ladies are all courageous. Wow, is that her son?
No, this is my son's portrait that Sabrina did.
Oh, that is
Of
beautiful. I got
course,
to have one.
they didn't present me with it because what happened is this is an actual shirt of his that she wove into the painting. Um, and my daughter-in-law is the one. My daughter-in-law is a web designer and graphic artist. Her and Sabrina works well together, but they didn't realize that that portrait was going to come. That the shirt that was going to be given of Akeem's was going to be red. And Akeem, she took a portrait of Akeem that he had a white T-shirt on in Miami, and of course, Akeem was shot to death. So that red shirt resonated differently. So they didn't give me that portrait, but she's working on another piece, and that particular piece we will do mugs, shirts, and stuff to fund um, the work that I'm doing with other moms and also the advocacy work that we will continue to do. I will pass on Sabrina's information during our next gathering and possibly invite her as well. But thank you.
please do, please do.
And can I just say, Sherry, I would like to talk to you and your artist because I'm doing an art exhibit and for Jacksonville for murder victims, and I want to get her in contact with the lady that does the same thing. It's called Faces Not Forgotten, so that's something that we could do on at a different time. But you ladies be blessed. This was a blessing. And I gotta go.
Bye, Tony.
Thank you so much. And we're ready to close out. Thank you all for being a part of our awareness today. Thank you all for being the voice for our loved ones and for all the ones we lost to senseless gun violence. We thank you. And here at Sister Nation Group, we will continue to advocate and we will continue to be the service for humanity. And to all you women, I would like for everyone to know, just remember, God's power is our power. United Women Empowerment Against Gun and Domestic Violence. We in unity together. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Everybody be blessed. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
It's really good.